It was meant to be the perfect performance, a mesmerizing display of trust and connection between human and animal, but what started as a routine show quickly spiraled into an unimaginable tragedy. This is the story of Maris Ellington, a revered orca trainer, whose final moments would forever change the world of marine entertainment. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this story. Your support helps us bring you more powerful documentaries like this one. Maris Ellington wasn't just another marine mammal trainer. From a young age, she was captivated by the ocean. While most kids were collecting seashells, Maris was memorizing the names of every species of whale and dolphin. By 10, she could mimic their calls, and by 16, she was volunteering at her local aquarium, cleaning tanks, taking notes, and asking the kinds of questions no one else thought to ask. By the time she was 24, Maris had earned an honors degree in biology, specializing in marine behavior. But it wasn't just her academic achievements that set her apart. It was her unique bond with the animals. She had an extraordinary ability to connect with them, to read their emotions, to understand them on a level that even the most seasoned trainers found difficult to comprehend. Colleagues often remarked that she shared an almost unspoken language with the orcas, those powerful black and white predators of the sea that many trainers approached with caution. Yet with Maris, the orcas seemed to lean in, to trust her, to respond in ways that were almost supernatural. Her deep connection with the whales didn't go unnoticed. Within a year of graduation, Maris was recruited by Ocean World, one of the world's most prestigious marine parks. It was a dream come true. She quickly became one of the park's most trusted orca handlers, a rising star in the world of marine entertainment. Visitors came to know her by name, and trainers in training looked to her for guidance. But Maris wasn't just a performer in the pool. She was a protector, an advocate for the well-being of the animals in her care. Behind the scenes, she was tirelessly working for better treatment, advocating for more enrichment, and ensuring that the orcas' lives weren't just about entertainment, but about care and respect. But what seemed like a dream career would soon take a tragic turn, forever altering the course of marine mammal training. Maris Ellington believed in coexistence. The idea that humans and these enormous predators could form a bond based on respect, not dominance. She often said, "They don't work for us, we work together." But in the world of marine entertainment, things are rarely as they seem. Behind the smiles, the perfect jumps, and the synchronized waves, there were complex creatures, intelligent, emotional, and sometimes unpredictable, and Maris understood that better than most. But on that fateful day, even she couldn't predict what would happen next. Ocean World Marine Park was a towering monument to humanity's fascination with the sea. Stretching across 60 acres of meticulously designed enclosures, theaters, and artificial lagoons, the park attracted millions of visitors each year. Its crown jewel was the Orca Spectacular, a high-energy, emotionally charged show featuring some of the largest predators ever held in captivity. Behind towering glass barriers and crashing waves, the killer whales performed with breathtaking precision, leaping, spinning, and splashing on cue, creating awe in the eyes of children and wonder in the hearts of adults. But beneath the applause and admiration was a darker story, a complex history filled with both beauty and shadows. Ocean World's Orca program began over 3 decades ago, during a time when capturing wild orcas was still legal in some parts of the world. Early shows were simple displays of power and obedience, but as the years passed, the choreography became more elaborate. Trainers entered the water with the orcas, surfed on their dorsal fins, and even kissed the whales on the nose. What the public didn't see, however, was the immense psychological and physical pressure placed on both the humans and the animals to maintain the illusion of harmony. The true cost of the show was hidden beneath the surface, and as much as Maris loved her orcas, she knew that this world, the one built on spectacle and performance, wasn't as perfect as it seemed. One orca in particular stood out, a massive 11,000-pound bull named Cairo. Captured off the coast of Iceland as a calf, Cairo had spent over 20 years in captivity. At 23 feet long, he was a commanding figure, muscular, broad-finned, and marked with deep scars on his flanks from dominance battles with other males. Trainers described him as intelligent, moody, and unpredictable. Cairo had been involved in several close calls over the years, moments when he failed to respond to commands, showed signs of agitation, or displayed territorial behavior towards staff in the pool. Though no incidents resulted in injury, they were recorded in internal logs, filed away quietly without much attention. Experts had long warned that orcas, especially males, could develop behavioral issues in captivity. In the wild, these creatures roam up to 100 miles a day, traveling with tight-knit family pods and forming complex social bonds. But in captivity, isolated from natural stimuli and kept in artificial pods, frustration can build. Dr. Elaine Satterfield, a renowned marine biologist and former consultant to Ocean World, once stated, "When you remove an animal like an orca from its natural environment, you're not just putting it in a tank, you're putting its mind in a box, and sometimes it breaks." Despite the warnings, Cairo remained a star. He drew crowds, performed on cue, and, most importantly, trusted Maris. At least, he had. But in the weeks leading up to that day, something had changed. Cairo had begun floating listlessly at the surface, less responsive to trainers. He started jaw-popping more frequently, a known sign of agitation or dominance in orcas. The signs were subtle, but they were there. And on the morning of the attack, the surface of the water was calm, deceptively calm. No one could have known that beneath the stillness, something was brewing. February 17th. The morning sun beamed brightly over Ocean World Marine Park, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Visitors poured into the amphitheater for the park's midday Orca Spectacular show. Backstage, Maris Ellington prepared as usual, running through her pre-show checklist, checking in with the handlers, and watching Cairo through the glass as he circled the performance tank, slowly. At 11:46 a.m., Maris stepped onto the poolside platform. Her wetsuit was zipped, her hair was tied back, and her headset was in place. The stadium erupted in cheers as Cairo breached the water in a perfect arc, soaking the front row. It seemed like any other performance, smooth, rehearsed, flawless. But there were signs that things weren't quite right. Cairo hesitated on two cues. He delayed a slide onto the platform, and his tail slaps were more aggressive, creating deeper reverberations across the pool's surface. Trainers noticed it. Maris saw it. Still, she continued, guiding him with practiced movements, reward signals, and calm body language. The bond between them, built over a decade, made her confident, perhaps, though, a little too confident. At 11:58 a.m., the show reached a familiar moment. A close contact routine Maris had performed countless times before. Standing on a submerged platform, she faced Cairo directly. She extended her arm, signaling him for a side swim. But something was off. According to a witness in Section B, Maris was mid-signal when the mood changed instantly. Cairo dipped beneath the water, then resurfaced, but not where he should have. Something was wrong. Without warning, Cairo lunged. His jaws clamped down on Maris's arm, yanking her into the water with terrifying speed. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Some thought it was part of the act. Others knew it wasn't. Underwater, chaos unfolded. Trainers on the edge of the pool sprang into action, activating emergency protocols. Underwater, tone generators, devices meant to distract and redirect the whale were deployed. Cairo ignored them. He held Maris under, thrashing, diving, spinning with her in his grip. Seconds dragged into a minute. Then, 2. Rescue teams scrambled to close emergency gates and isolate Cairo from the rest of the enclosure. Others tossed nets and floating barriers into the water in an effort to contain him. He dodged every attempt. Surfacing only briefly before diving again, Maris still in his hold. One trainer shouted commands and waved fish from the medical pool, trying to lure him away. Cairo didn't respond. At 12:03 p.m., the emergency dive team arrived, but safety protocols were strict. No diver could enter while the whale remained aggressive. They stood by, helpless, watching the water churn, and then go still. Finally, at 12:08 p.m., Cairo let her go. Staff pulled Maris's body from the pool. She was unresponsive. Paramedics began CPR on the pool deck as stunned families were hurried out of the stands. Children cried. Parents stood frozen, unable to process what they had witnessed. At 12:23 p.m., Maris Ellington was pronounced dead. In just under 7 minutes, a decorated career, a deep bond, and a decade-long relationship came to a sudden, violent end. Why did Cairo snap? Was it stress? Was it instinct? Or something deeper? Something we still don't fully understand. What remained in the pool was silence, and a question that would haunt Ocean World forever. In the hours that followed, the park went into immediate lockdown. All shows were canceled. The amphitheater was sealed off. Just before sunset, Ocean World released a short public statement. "We are deeply saddened to confirm the passing of one of our most experienced and beloved trainers, Maris Ellington. Our thoughts are with her family, friends, and the entire Ocean World team during this devastating time. We are fully cooperating with authorities in the investigation." No questions were taken. No further comments were made. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched an investigation. Federal wildlife officials were brought in. Veterinarians began monitoring Cairos behavior. Hours of show footage were analyzed, frame by frame. Internal reports were pulled, documents outlining previous incidents involving Cairo, none of which had ever been shared with the public. Within 48 hours, Maris's autopsy was complete, but answers were still hard to find. The findings were devastating. Maris Ellington had suffered massive trauma, blunt force injuries to her chest, abdomen, and neck, multiple fractured ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and severe internal bleeding in her lungs. The official cause of death was ruled as drowning due to prolonged submersion, but the medical examiner made it clear, even without drowning, the internal injuries alone could have killed her. Within days, details of the autopsy leaked to the press. The public reaction was swift and furious. News outlets across the country ran headlines that couldn't be ignored. Orca kills veteran trainer. Tragedy at Ocean World. Killer whale turns deadly. Footage of the moments before the attack, Maris smiling, waving to the crowd, children cheering, was replayed endlessly on TV and online. Talk shows and news panels debated the ethics of keeping intelligent predators in captivity. Former trainers stepped forward. One told Express Coque, "We've been warning about Cairo for years. That whale was in distress. No one wanted to hear it." Protests erupted outside Ocean World's gates. Animal rights groups called for the immediate release of all captive orcas. Social media ignited with hashtags "Justice for Maris" and "Free Cairo," shut down Ocean World. The front gates of the park turned into a memorial site. Flowers, candles, photos, and handwritten notes left by fans, fellow trainers, and grieving families. Some mourned Maris. Others demanded change. What started as a tragedy became something bigger, a national reckoning. This wasn't just about one whale or one woman. It became a flashpoint in a long-running battle over captivity, animal rights, and the dark reality behind marine entertainment. The core question wouldn't go away. Could this have been prevented? And if so, why wasn't it? Maris Ellington's death wasn't an isolated event. It was another chapter in a disturbing pattern that has haunted marine parks for decades. At the heart of it all is one simple, deeply uncomfortable question. Should orcas, highly intelligent, social, wide-ranging predators, ever be kept in captivity? For years, marine parks answered yes. They claimed the shows were safe, the whales were well-fed and enriched, the trainers were experts, but the attack on Maris, like the ones before it, cracked that illusion wide open. Just a decade earlier, in 2010, SeaWorld trainer Brancho was killed by a 12,000-pound orca named Tilikum. That attack too was shocking, brutal, and public. It triggered a federal investigation, inspired the explosive documentary Blackfish, and sparked global outrage. Dawn's death became a symbol of a system stretched too far, too long. Now, history was repeating itself. And this time, the world was watching even closer. Should these animals be performing at all, Or are we witnessing the cost of ignoring the warning signs again and again? A decade after Maris Ellington's death, the same painful questions came roaring back. Marine scientists had warned us for years. Captivity takes a heavy toll on orcas. In the wild, these apex predators swim up to 100 miles a day. They hunt, play, form lifelong bonds, and communicate in complex vocal dialects. In captivity, they circle concrete tanks. They follow rigid feeding schedules. They perform the same routines day after day. Their minds built for the open ocean are boxed in. A 2021 Wired article quoted former trainers who described life in captivity as a pressure cooker. The result? Stress, boredom, frustration. Some whales turn on each other, some hurt themselves, and in rare but devastating cases, they turn on their trainers. Dr. Jen Sorensen, a marine behaviorist, put it simply: we've underestimated them. Orcas remember, they grieve, they strategize, and when their world shrinks too small, some break, not because they're monsters, but because they're sentient. The parallels between Maris and Don Brancho, another trainer killed by an orca 10 years earlier, were hard to ignore. Both were experienced, both were admired, both were killed by animals they loved, in parks that had been warned something could go wrong. And yet, what complicates this further is the deep emotional connection trainers form with orcas. They don't see them as threats. They see them as partners, sometimes even family. Many trainers accept the risks, but the public started asking, should those risks even exist? At what point does a show stop being magical and start becoming exploitation? After Maris's death, the backlash was immediate. Petitions gained millions of signatures. Lawmakers re-examined stalled bills. Marine parks were suddenly on trial, not in court, but in the court of public opinion. Because when a top predator turns on the one person it trusts most, it forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about trust, control, and captivity. Ocean World responded quickly. Within weeks, they halted all in-water orca performances. Trainers were pulled from the pools, safety protocols were rewritten. Outside experts, marine biologists, behaviorists, even former critics were brought in to help create safer, more ethical training programs. The once flagship orca show was quietly scaled back. But for many, it was too little, too late. Still, Maris's legacy didn't end there. 6 months after her death, her grieving family founded the Maris Ellington Foundation. Its mission: fund marine mammal research, improve safety training for animal handlers, and support responsible wildlife care. Scholarships were launched for students entering marine science. Donations poured in from around the world. Ocean World held a candlelight vigil by the main tank. Trainers stood in silence, wetsuits zipped, heads bowed. Flowers floated on the still water. And below the surface, Cairo, the orca who had taken her life, moved slowly, silently, as if mourning in his own way. To those who knew her, Maris wasn't a thrill seeker. She was a caretaker, a listener, someone who saw orcas not as performers, but as equals. She never treated them like tools, one former coworker said. She spoke to them. That's what made her special. She wasn't naive about the risks, another added, but she believed in the bond. She believed in the work. Her story ended in tragedy, but her legacy lives on. In every conversation sparked by her death, every new policy passed, every young scientist inspired, and in every orca given a little more space to live as nature intended. Maris Ellington's story is more than a tragedy. It's a reflection of our complicated relationship with the wild. It's a story of love, loss, and the fragile line between trust and danger. It's a challenge to how we define care, whether we truly love these animals or simply love what they do for us. It's about the cages we build, not just with steel and concrete, but with ignorance, profit, and pride. Can we claim to care about orcas and still deny them the freedom they were born to know? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. In the aftermath, something shifted. Laws began to change, parks began to evolve, awareness grew. And while Maris's death cannot be undone, her story has driven a movement toward transparency, responsibility, and compassion. If her story moved you, don't let it end here. Learn more, speak up, share her story. Support marine conservation. Because behind every performance, behind every glass wall, there's a deeper truth. And sometimes it ends in silence.